Well, another episode. We're back.
We are here.
So, most people probably know we're in the auction business.
Yep.
We're getting into the time of year where it's super busy for us.
Yes.
Harvest sales, year-end stuff. So, because of how busy we are, we're going to probably move the podcast to once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Twice a month, just to make sure we have good, solid content. And if we can, get in here and do an extra one here or there, we'll definitely do that. But
We'll definitely give it our best shot. But, for now, we'll just go every other week or every 2 weeks. And,
Yeah.
And like you said, we'll make our content good.
yeah, absolutely. Well, before we get started, I'd like to thank DPA Auctions for powering our podcast. DPA Auctions strive to maintain a true auction experience with the convenience of buying and selling over the internet from anywhere in the world. Please consider how DPA Auctions can help you both as a buyer and a seller benefit from their online auction platform. So thanks to those guys for allowing us to bring this to everybody free of charge and giving us some of the resources.
It's much appreciated.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So in our last episode, we talked about ways to get youth involved in the agricultural field.
Empowering the youth. That's right.
Yep. So I think we'll kind of piggyback off that a little bit for this one. One of the things that we touched on was technology.
Right.
And what young kid or the younger generation does not like technology. And there's several different things with technology in the agriculture industry. And even more so in the last few years, stuff has really ramped up. So let's talk a little bit about smart farming and some of the things that you can do there. They got cattle management devices where you can monitor the health of your animal. A lot of those are used in the dairies to do that. They have a similar thing for crop management devices. It's a deal that you stick out in the middle of your field and that measures precipitation and temp and all that kind of stuff. So, but what I'm getting at is we're always evolving in this industry. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, GPS wasn't even a thing. People didn't pay attention to it, or it wasn't a staple like it is now.
No. 10, 15 years ago, the household devices were really coming into play.
Yeah.
And, we had technology for the household.
Yep.
And now, like you said, we're totally evolving into it on the farming the agriculture industry and the strides that it's taking, the last few years, like you said, is growing, and it's only going to grow more.
Yeah. I remember, I don't remember exactly when it was, but, my stepdad worked for a potato farm, and he did a lot of irrigation. And when they got the system set up where they could start and turn off their irrigation system via text, they thought that was just the coolest thing ever, because they didn't have to get up in the middle of the night and go shut it off if something happened to it or whatever. And even that's kind of a thing in the past. Now you got apps that you can manage everything and control the water feed and how much you're putting on and whatever, all from your phone. You never have to get off the couch,
right?
If you really didn't want to.
Right.
But one of the things I wanted to get into today is the use of drones. Now, That's been a pretty hot topic recently.
It is.
People use them for mapping and that kind of stuff. But there was an Iowa City-based company. It's Rentizo, I believe is how you pronounce it. They this summer were the first Iowa-based drone applicator. They got approved. Now they had to jump through some hoops in order to do that, because technically,
who did they have to? They had to jump through hoops with who? The aviation, or?
Well, it was more so like the Iowa State Board
that regulates all that.
Yeah, and even some of it was aviation, because technically they're classified as like a crop duster. Well, all crop dusters have to have seatbelts.
Oh, that's right.
How do you put a seatbelt on a drone?
Right.
So they were talking, in their early, when they were first doing this, they would get a toy seatbelt or a fake seatbelt, and they would, attach it to the drone so they could pass it.
What did they belt in? Like a doll or something?
Yeah, I have no idea, but it's pretty cool. And now they're actually licensed in Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Illinois. And their motto is fly and apply. Easy to use drone crop spraying platform that precisely applies inputs where and when they are needed. Which is pretty cool to think that, you have this big field, 600 acre field or whatever it may be, and you're using a drone to spray with. Now there's
Well, one thing I was going to say, what's really cool is with the drones and so forth. Just about this whole nation, I shouldn't say but just about. We were covered with water, especially in the Midwest and so forth, just blanketed with water.
yeah,
And I know, like in Iowa, for instance, they've been getting lots of rain.
yeah.
And
Well, they just opened up I-80 not that long ago.
right, and I-29 not too long
Yep.
ago just opened up.
Or
a few weeks-
I-29, yeah.
a few weeks back. And here's the situation: they can't get their bigger equipment into the fields.
Yeah.
So drones are.
Well, and
You
that's this year particularly has been the year that they've needed it, right?
Right.
And what's crazy is the guy said, it can be raining at noon, but we're flying at 1.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't leave a footprint, right?
Right,
'Cause
right.
It doesn't matter as long as the soil conditions are right to accept the spray or whatever that they're dropping. It doesn't matter whether it had rained 20 minutes ago or whatever.
Right.
Where if you get a big floater or a self-propelled machine, you might get stuck or you might tear stuff up. But then also, let's move forward to we're in August now, right? And there's
Exactly.
been a lot of farmers that have had troubles with bugs and different funguses and that kind of stuff hit their
Yeah,
crops.
it's been an awkward year for that, I'll tell you.
And it's been hit and miss. It hasn't been this whole field. It might be 15 acres in this field, 20 acres in that field, et cetera. So prior, what would you do?
Well,
you-
you'd spray the whole field,
Yeah, but you're in August, and
Oh, okay, I see.
and getting a machine in there to do it isn't feasible.
No.
And also the production of getting a big machine in there to only spray 15 or 20 acres or whatever it may be, or you get your local crop duster to come in and buzz it, that kind of thing. Well,
Right.
with what these guys are doing, farmers will be able to do that themselves, and that's what's cool. Because there's a regulation. The one thing that they are regulated by now is the drone. If it's over 55 pounds loaded, you have to have a pilot's license to operate it. Let's face it, there's not a whole lot of licensed pilots out there that are going to come fly a drone.
Right.
There are, but there's not like there's an abundance.
It's not really in the cards for them.
But there's a lot of farmers, right?
A lot of farmers.
So these guys are their goal, their business model is to make these drones 55 pounds or less loaded, so that any farmer or anybody who works for the farmer is able to operate it. So then in that case, you can hop out there in an afternoon, go fly it, do your 13, 14, 15 acres, and be done. And what's cool is you think, a drone's pretty small, right? 55 pounds is still not a lot of product when you're spreading it.
No, but heck, you can, on average, you can get what is it, 100 acres a day?
Yeah, it's about 13 acres an hour.
13 acres an hour.
Yep.
So, in your example, if there's a 15-acre plot or a 20-acre plot where
Yep.
it needs it, you can get that done pretty quickly.
Well,
And,
right,
and
right.
efficiently and effectively.
Yeah,
So,
and they're one of their big deals too is efficiency, and their end goal is to be able to have this be all automated. Like if you're doing 100 acres, they said depending on the product you're spreading and the amount that you're spreading, you could have to reload 60 to 120 times a day, which is kind of cumbersome, right?
Right, right.
So
It can be.
that is a downfall of it. But then again, you're doing it yourself. You're cutting out the person that you're going to have to hire to come in and do it. So you're more efficient still as a business in that situation. But one of their main goals is to have an automated filling system. Now they're still working on that.
well, right. And, that brings me to a point, we have the automation and technology in vehicles. We have
Yeah.
self-driving vehicles.
Yeah.
I rode in one the other day and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Would I do it? I don't know, but it was awesome. So, they have, like I said, the technology is there. So the way it sounds, they're going to apply this technology to the drones as well for
Yeah.
self-filling.
Yeah,
Is that what you-
and that's what they wanted to do because the end goal is for it to be all automated, right? So you basically go in, you set your drone, it starts flying, and you can do that by mapping your fields via satellite imagery, that kind of stuff. So essentially, you'd be able to go in, start it, it starts spraying, and you walk away, and it does it all by itself.
Sweet enough.
So if they can develop a situation or a system in where it can land back in the same spot, which most drones you can program to do that, and then have an autofill system, and then pick back up and continue. That's the end goal. And think about that, how efficient that would be, because you're freeing up a man. You know, you can literally set it, leave, go fix fence, or go check irrigation, or whatever, and come back. You don't have to have an actual operator there doing that.
That saves a lot of time, a lot of money,
Yeah.
and like you said, it's efficient.
Well, and efficiency is key with everything that is going on these days, with crop prices struggling. You know, finding people to work for you at times can even be struggling to find, you know, good labor or somebody that can run a machine. And, you know, if you can free up that person to become more efficient, you're going to make more money in your products,
Right.
and in what you're producing.
Right,
You know?
exactly.
So hopefully that really takes off. I think that's a cool option for farmers to have, and to be able to run it themselves, you know, which is cool as well.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the crop management things. We touched on it a little bit when we started this. So it's sits on a rod. It's a sensor, and it can basically survey your field and tell you, you know, this plant has this type of precipitation, and we need more of this, and the crop health. What kind of benefits do you think there are there?
Well, I just think what that really comes down to is again the efficiency
Yeah.
word, and how you're able to measure that. You know, it's going to come down to measurement, and ultimately, it's going to diagnose what the issue is,
Yeah.
and better identify what to use for that solution,
Right.
and how much, and what areas. So, I mean, it's just going to be, you know, smart farming and using this technology,
Yeah.
I think, is incredible.
Well, and how much time do you think the average farmer spends going out checking their crops? You know, and looking at them. I mean,
Boy, I'll tell you what, we'll have to get a couple farmers on board and ask them that question, but we hear
but
it
it's
all
a
the
lot.
time. It's
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, I went and checked the crops today, or went and looked at that, and to check this 80 over here and the quarter over there. You know, so, and a lot of these guys, you know, their fields might be 5, 6, 7 miles apart. So they're running from spot to spot to spot to spot, where here they could pull it up on their phone or their iPad or tablet or whatever it may be, and they could check it. Now, are they still going to want to go look at it? Absolutely,
course
because
they're
you're
gonna wanna-
going to. But you don't have to put that much priority into it, because
Right.
you're reading the data.
But in terms of time and money and so forth, I mean, formalize it for a second, Mr. Chris.
Yeah.
What I'm saying by formalize it is, if you, the farmer, let's say you're the farmer and you're going out to check your 80 or 120 or whatever
Yeah.
it may be and so forth, and let's say you take a day or two to check out all your crops and check the irrigation and so forth. But if you put that to time and money, think about what other time can be spent on something else. That could be
Yeah.
money, a money-making opportunity
Yeah.
for that individual.
Right.
Or for that business.
Well, and we've talked before about farmers diversifying what they do. You know, there's a lot of farmers who run cattle, you know, and they obviously offer cattle management devices as
Cattle
well.
management devices, definitely.
And basically what that is, that's a collar that goes around the cow, and it can measure the temperature of the cattle, the activity level, the overall health,
Disease, yes.
and disease, that kind of stuff.
Prevents them from spreading disease to other.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, and you're able to not only measure that particular cow's health, you can also measure your whole herd,
Right.
right? If you have it set up that way. And again, you're being more efficient. So here, you can, instead of spending 50% of the time doing this and 50% of the time doing that, you have these things in place that allow you to still focus on them. You're still monitoring them, but it, again, frees up time to maybe take on another 300 or 400 acres of farm ground, or bring in another 75, 80 head of cattle, or whatever it may be.
Well, right, and you brought up the word herd, and you know, what this helps do is literally you don't have to per se pay attention to that whole herd. You can individualize a cow
Yeah.
or two or
Yep.
three and move them to another area
Yeah,
and treat them.
right. Well, yeah, and
So you're not treating the whole herd.
Right.
It's just cost effective.
right. Well, and the nice thing is, if you're raising like beef stock or whatever, and you have this one, particular animal that's not putting on the weight, or whatever, it's going to tell you what its deficiencies is.
Exactly.
And you'll be able to catch it ahead of time, instead of having to wait and vaccinate later because it's sick, or something like that. You're going to know that ahead of time, so you can take a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach, which is
It's
only
key.
going to help.
It's key.
Yeah.
It's very key.
Yeah. So we'd mentioned earlier in the podcast, things are busy this time of year for
Yeah.
us. I know we got some auctions coming up here on September 10th and the 24th.
10th and actually it's turned into another 2-day sale.
So
It's,
that
10th
makes
and
what
11th.
our last 3-4 sales,
I think
all
it'd
2-day
be
sales.
3 or 4 in a row. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
which is good. People are buying. People are out there spending money, replacing older equipment that they have. What are some of the stuff that you're seeing come across the sale here in the most recent weeks that people are looking to move?
Well, I'll tell you what, we have these, the pre-harvest sales, for
Yeah.
instance. We're seeing abundance of combines come across
Yeah.
now. So we're seeing that. We're seeing seed equipment move. There's a bunch of seed equipment coming up on the 10th. It's an inventory reduction sale, and so we're seeing that. We're seeing tractors move yet.
So now, what kind of tractors are you seeing? Is it the lower horsepower, higher horsepower, a good mix?
Kind of a mix, kind of the mid-range, and then we're seeing some bigger horsepower tractors come into play too. But
Yeah.
I know you take on a lot of tractors. That's
Yeah.
part of your forte. So
Well, I primarily work with a lot of the guys down south, and they're either cotton or big row crop type stuff. I got a really nice 9770 STS combine that's coming up on the 10th from Rouse Enterprises at Potts Camp, Mississippi, and it's clean as a whistle. It's a really, really nice piece, and we've had some bigger tractors, some 8Rs, that
Well-
kind of stuff that are coming up as well.
you got a 9510R coming up,
Yep. Yeah, triples.
triples.
And that's out of Texas, isn't
That's
it?
out of Texas,
What,
yeah.
1900 hours on it?
1900 hours, yeah.
Perfect,
So
perfect tractor.
Perfect fit. Boy, I'll tell
Yeah.
you what, that has a lot of life on it.
Is there anything that has hit the auction in the last few auctions that you've seen that just like, wow, that was crazy, it broke the bank, or did really, really well that you weren't anticipating?
Well, I think there was a tractor. I think it was one of yours. Why don't you,
Is that John Deere 70, was it 7810?
that really, I guess we're seeing certain trends.
Yeah. Well, any 150 to 200 horsepower tractor I've seen lately has gone through the roof,
I think ultimately what we're seeing in the market is more of a need-based buyer situation.
Yeah.
And the seller needs as well. So if the product is needed, you're gonna have buyers.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
More than a surplus.
Yep.
Of
Yeah.
things.
Yep, sounds
So,
good. Well, let's wrap it up here, and I know we got a bunch of stuff to do and get some stuff marketed and get ready for our next couple auctions. So
Sounds great.
thanks for giving me some more
Appreciate
time.
it, and I love our time together on this cast.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, take
All
care.
right, you bet.